All right, what is going on, everyone? And welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to discuss the latest offseason news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are recorded live now regularly every Friday, such as now, at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live, which includes live reaction shows to our off-season moves that are not available on audio, but only on our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for some content over there as well. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It'd be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 184 of our show. And I would like to give a small welcome back to Frank. It's been a while since you've been on here, almost a month, I would say. And when you were gone, the final piece of our number one guys was taken from us. First, it was Nimmo. That's Andrew's guy. Diaz left. That was my guy. And then Jeff McNeil leaves. So, or no, he didn't leave. He was traded. But either way, that just shows you how long it's been since you've been here. So welcome back. A lot has happened on social media. Off season kind of slow, but again, Frank, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back. And it was the final piece, like you said. I mean, they said, listen, we're getting rid of the entire 2019 core. McNeil made the most sense both on the field and to some extent off the field. What's going on in the clubhouse, we'll get into that a little bit later on as well. But it just seemed like something that you kind of knew was happening. It's just a totally different direction that they're going. The new direction that they are going, we'll see if it pays off. There's still more that certainly needs to be done as far as like replacing, because like we talked about, you trade away Nimmo, you still need a left fielder. Trey McNeil, I still think you could use a guy who could play a few positions off the bench. I definitely didn't love the versatility on this team, and it took a hit. I mean, whether McNeil was having a great season or not, he was still someone that could play infield and outfield. You have nobody else on his roster that really does that. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is right now. It's kind of like either or. And most of these guys, they're kind of stuck at like corner third base. Like we talk about, you have either a bunch of DHs or a bunch of third basemen. Like that's the way the team is constructed. They still have to figure that out as far as like if you want to plug in all of the young players, send down a young player and sign a utility guy. Like there's still a few changes that they could make, like besides moving on from McNeil. But, I mean, we'll see when they do that because, well, like we're going to get into as well, they still need pitching. So even though it's a month away from spring training, it still feels like there's a lot of work to do here.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of work to do and a lot of questions to be solved throughout the entirety of Major League Baseball. And to be honest, when you look at this market right now that has been slow as all hell, I mean, we are just desperate for any news whatsoever. And it's kind of interesting to see all of these top profile guys still on the market as of right now, way past the winter meetings. I mean, yes, we see guys that, there's like a select few, but there is a lot of guys available, more than we usually see. And I still think that has something to do with the qualifying offer of how it slows down the entirety of the market. Not to mention, it also eliminates some of the teams that are not willing to spend, and they see no repercussions because of it. And you see this in the chat from Mayaguez. I'm not sure if I said that correct. Mayaguez saying 200 free agents are not signed, and that's crazy. We've already passed 2026. We're into 2026, 9 days into it, and that still has not. Happened. We also have some guys who are expected to possibly get traded that have not been moved as well. The starting pitching market, like we have said, trades, free agency signings. I mean, it's going really, really slow. And we'll see as to what they end up doing. And there's questions that still need to be answers, obviously, within this roster. Like you just said, Frank, it's also the fact that some of these young guys also are out of minor league options. So you don't really have that much of of space to make a decision unless you want to do an entire bench of these young guys, which doesn't help at all. It really does not whatsoever. Andrew, I'll go to you. You're also here. You like your off-season moves. There hasn't been many of them. Really, there really hasn't. There's just been rumors on top of rumors on top of rumors of guys just repeating the same thing over and over again. But I mean, something's got to happen, right? I mean, these guys can't stay available forever, right? Something's got to happen.
Yeah, when we've seen, obviously, we saw another pretty big trade of a player the Mets maybe had interest in the Edward Cabrera, which again affects the Mets with Owen Casey now being in the division, and the Marlins get another one of these left-handed outfielders that had a lot of high potential that the team gave up on. We'll see if Kyle Stowers work. We'll see what they do with Owen Casey. But it is like, and we talk about this free agent market, it's insane that the DH guys are gone, besides the Gino. But the guys that we thought that have no defensive value, that are bat first players are off the board, and guys like Schwarber and the Cheeto Bear, them already being gone. But yet the guys that bring versatility, the defensive guys who have more tools, are still waiting. And yes, we'd expect them to get bigger contracts. But again, we're playing this cat and mouse game of qualifying offer, guys overplaying your hand, and we're still seeing in the same system of we've got 3 or 4 teams that are in on all 3 of the big guys left. And all the pitchers, we've seen teams be more willing to give up big prospect capital for younger upside arms compared to the stability that is on this free agents class. They're not great names. Obviously, next year's pitching class is better. It's by no doubt. But you've seen front offices prioritize the youth. We've seen Will Sammons say the Mets are prioritizing that trade market too. So it is a bad class for pitchers. I mean, there's a couple guys that we're going to talk about, but overall the market is weird, and it is what it is. And I will say, this year's bad. I mean, next year's class, there's a few starting pitchers. The best bats next year's class are like George Springer. So if you think this is going to be a slow offseason, next year is, besides obviously Scooble and Freddie Peralta, there's a few names, but next year's class is even weaker, and then going into a lockout, get used to this, because again, a year from now, we're probably going to be talking about year 46 of a lockout, and we'll figure it out from there if we even play baseball. So again, it sucks, but again, I saw somebody in the chat say it, Harper and Machado sign in February. So I'm not saying that the bats that are on the market are on the same level. I mean, you could say Kyle Tucker to an extent, Kelly Bellinger not. But it's just how it is. We were lucky last year where Soto, and the last couple of years were Soto, Ohtani, and Judge signed at the winter meetings. This year, again, where you have a top 15 player in Kyle Tucker, and then an up and down flawed player in Cody Bellinger being your 2 best bats on the market, again, and you only have the same 3 teams, and they're both trying to play the same tactics. It's not a great look for, content creators and fans being like, come on, it's been literally 3 weeks. Can someone please do something?
I mean, we've seen the pace of this market obviously slow down over the last few years. We've seen a lot of GMs either get smarter, or we see a lot of GMs be a little bit more wiser as compared to some of the pieces that go. But you also have some of these contracts that have been given out that, it's all really just about the aggressiveness. And as of right now, it seems like a lot of teams are just playing the game of what the Mets are playing, of just waiting for them to just fall in their lap at this point, because they have no reason as to not. We'll see how this pans out of the big free agents on this market. We're going to talk a lot about them. But speaking of big free agents, Matt in the chat saying that the Angels signed Nick Madrigal per Robert Murray, typical Angels. That's a big free agent off the board, so maybe that gets the market moving. But listen, there is basically setting an example of what needs to change as to why this market is so slow. Sometimes you need to see the bad stuff before it gets better, and as of right now, you're seeing a very, very slow market for a game that does not promote itself the best even though they've gotten better at it, doesn't promote themselves the best throughout the season, throughout the offseason, boy, this is going to be quite a detriment to that way of this being promoted, because you have absolutely no idea where some of these guys are going to go. So we will see where that ends up going. But again, get into some people in the chat. Armand's saying the free agent market makes a cemetery look more lively. 100% correct. BBA saying Stearns is waiting till March for a 50% off discount. It seems like that's how the market is just moving at this current moment. And as of right now, when you look at this current free agent market, before we even get into the discussions of specific players, I don't see anybody out there to give a big contract to. Like, I don't think there's anybody available where I'm like, okay, I'm going all in Juan Soto style right now to go and pursue this guy. And it seems like the rest of the market feels that way too. And we're going to talk about Kyle Tucker in a second. He's the top free agent on the board right now. He's a great player, perennial 4 to 5 win player, likely is worth $40 million a year. However, we'll see what he ends up getting, whether it is the high AAV short deal. We'll see if he prefers to go to a smaller market or not. He's waiting for those smaller markets. We don't know what factors in for that, because Tucker has obviously a little bit more flexibility right now of him he's kind of controlling the market at this current moment, because he is the top guy available as of right now. But we'll see what happens, because again, there's not much urgency, I'd say, as of right now, because they're just waiting for somebody to blink. That's basically it. I think the next, as we are currently talking, the next guy to go, as we have heard, it seems like maybe it's Bo Bichette. We've heard some reports about Bo Bichette possibly going to the Phillies. Josh was saying it right in sync, saying Bichette. And I'm interested to see what that contract looks like, because after seeing what Dansby Swanson got in the past, after seeing what Willy Adames got in the past, two guys who are even better defenders than a guy such as Bo Bichette, or maybe it's the Phillies and they just throw $300 million at him his way. It looks like he's looking for $300 million, which is a contract I would not give to him whatsoever, for so many different aspects. But again, when it comes to the top 1% guys, I don't think there's really anybody out there. Tucker is the biggest of that market that you're like, okay, maybe you consider giving him a 6 or 8 year deal, something like that. Maybe you consider it, depending on how desperate you are to go. But it doesn't seem like anybody's going that way. We've seen the Blue Jays. It seems like they're looking at giving him a long-term deal. Everybody else, it looks like they're sitting back and waiting. And if they want to give him a long-term deal, why isn't he signed yet? Maybe he doesn't want to go to Toronto. I don't know. Who knows? We have no clue. But we're going to get into what actually is happening on this market, of what the Mets have been attached to, because it has blossomed day by day as to what the feeling is. And we know that Bellinger, more on the other side, is getting more from John Heyman because he is friends with Scott Boras and he's a Boras client. Tucker is not a Boras client. So we'll see, again, how those markets descend, what Bellinger is pursuing. But the Mets have been attached to Bellinger, and for good reason, because he would fit this roster in many different details. However, for the reports that we are getting, I don't know how long this is going to drag out to a point where the Mets just don't go, okay, well, we're just going to trade for somebody. We're just going to make some other move, because waiting out these markets with the gaps they still have on this roster, it's a dangerous game that they are playing. So when you get to this outfield market, and you're talking about Bellinger and Tucker, Will Salmon via The Athletic, and I'll get into some of the more stuff that Will Salmon talked about regarding just Kyle Tucker, saying that there's an openness to add someone like Cody Bellinger or Kyle Tucker, the Mets, for this instant. However, it likely depends on the market developing to the Mets' liking, which I think we all expected to happen. Mark Feinstein via MLB.com said the Mets and Yankees are both eager to add impact outfield bats and reportedly prefer Cody Bellinger over Kyle Tucker. We'll get into that in a second. John Heyman via BR Walkoff, or on a live stream, said that the Mets like Bellinger not only for their emphasized run prevention, but for added lineup protection for Juan Soto. No one can fully protect someone as great as Soto, of course, but Bellinger's the best, most obvious hope. And then Jim Duquette kind of came out with a bombshell about Kyle Tucker's direct market, saying that a league source has told me that the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Blue Jays are the most aggressive suitors for Kyle Tucker. Nothing appears imminent, but there is some distance between the other team reportedly interested and the main three. Now, we also got some stuff about Will Salmon. He came out with an article, I believe it was on Wednesday night, about the latest stuff about the Mets' interest directly just for Kyle Tucker. He said that the Mets' preference is to offer a shorter contract length, probably less than 3-4 years, with a high average annual value. League sources expect the Blue Jays to go longer, assuming they'll act aggressively, and given their history of swooping in and making deals with stars, the Dodgers loom as a contender. Discipline and rationality define the Mets' offseason so far, but a path to landing a big-name free agent always existed. It likely depended on the market developing to the Mets' liking, meaning a star like Tucker perhaps taking a shorter deal. Though they are in the mix, the Mets may not stand out as the favorite to land Tucker. Some within the industry question whether he would want to play in the biggest market, and some executives view him as a better personality fit elsewhere. With the Mets, however, Tucker would be the third biggest star behind Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto. Unlike a vocal segment of the Mets fan base, club officials view their roster as strong. Mets officials may end up being right. Maybe they are good. Maybe they're good without Tucker. They may even be pretty good if they add a top starting pitcher plus modest lineup upgrades. With Tucker, however, the Mets would take a significant step into closing the gap between them and the Dodgers, and that is better than being good. So that's a little bit of the rundown of what Will Salmon is putting out. The Mets definitely have interest in Kyle Tucker. I do think that is 100% real. How far would they be willing to go? I have absolutely no idea. And I think that goes for the rest of the league as well, as to how close they'd be willing to go. It doesn't seem like the Mets have as much interest as the Blue Jays do, to me, mainly because of their willingness to give a long-term deal to him. I don't know if offers have been made. We know that offers could have been made as well right now to Cody Bellinger, which was reported that the Yankees have offered Cody Bellinger a multi-year deal with a $30 million AAV, but Bellinger's camp is pushing for a 7-year deal. It already has been said that the Yankees are not going to give a 7-year deal to Cody Bellinger, so he may be out of luck in that way, and maybe he would have to look for a 3 or 4-year deal. Who knows? There's so many different angles that you can go out from this, of the certain fit, of how it fits in the Mets lineup, fits for them defensively, fits roster construction, fits them timeline-wise. I mean, each of these guys would boost the lineup 100%. However, is there a certain fit that is better if you're talking about it in a run prevention standpoint? I'd say that that's Cody Bellinger. If you're trying to add in a third star to this lineup and headline this lineup with a more jack-of-all-trades type of hitter and a jack-of-all-trades type of player in comparison to that orange bear, Kyle Tucker would be that guy. So there's many angles you can go at from this. I don't know if the Mets end up with either of these guys. Andrew, I'll go to you first. We've talked about Cody Bellinger seldomly. Obviously, the Mets have interest in him. We knew that they were going to be attached to him, obviously, with Mr. Alonso going to Baltimore, because Cody Bellinger can play first base. So, I mean, what would you say is your impression of this market? Because does this feel like it escalates at all? Because I feel like this is going to drag out at this point, especially with these guys both on the outfield market, one with Boris, and also front office is just seem to be in a staring contest, waiting for somebody else to blink.
Yeah. We've seen, obviously, we saw the report of what Bellinger wants. The Yankees have offered him $30 million AAV. Again, the AAV is a little more, but again, it's free agency. If I'm honest, I don't think, what the Mets are doing here, they say, oh, every team's doing this. If this, let's say we are sitting here 2 weeks before spring training, which again, give it a few weeks, they're going to be in that situation. And, oh, okay, I'm willing, let's talk about Tucker first, because he's the better player. Oh, I'm willing to take a, Bregman type deal. You know who's also waiting for that same exact reason? The Los Angeles Dodgers. So if I'm going to take a option latent deal, same AAV, or maybe the Mets offer me $5 million, let's say it's $45 million from the Mets and $40 million from the Dodgers. Who do you think he's going to take? The team that's gone back-to-back and winning World Series, or us? I think that's pretty obvious. When it comes to Bellinger, if we're still sitting at, a staring contest, we're like, well, they don't want to go term. And then Bellinger says, okay, let's say he gets down to 4 years. You don't think the Yankees are not willing to give him 7? If this gets down to 4, and let's say the Mets throw 4 and the Yankees throw 4, I don't think this is a Soto type situation where a couple extra million is going to be the difference. If it's down to 4 years, that's where the Yankees want to be. So if Bellinger gets down to that 4 year, he's going to go back to the Yankees. So we're playing this game, and again, rightfully so. That's how the market's been decided. That's how this market is moving. I'm okay with that. But and this is how I feel, and this is maybe why I don't love Stearns as much as, I still trust him, whatever. But my thing is, and we talk about, there's no Juan Soto on this market. This offense still needs, and it's not even, you were saying, like, you need to add it from the start. The Mets need more offensive production in this lineup. It's not even they need a star. They need more offensive production in one of the corners. Obviously, we expect Carson Bench to maybe be a part. I'm not putting all my faith in a prospect. As much as I love Carson Bench, and I hope he's the center fielder and he can provide, both sides of the ball production, I hope that. I'm not making that have to be, okay, we're going to run Tyrone Taylor and then we're going to give Carson Bench an opportunity. I understand that. I would love that. But you need to add some offensive production. And Cody Bellinger gives you the run prevention. And David Stearns, surprisingly, hasn't really, you could say Semien, but in every other move, he really hasn't improved the run prevention. So that would be, okay, we heard that right away. Bellinger would be the favorite. For me, I'm prioritizing Tucker. I need more offensive juice in this lineup. And it's not even like, whoa, you need to start. You just need some more consistency. And if everything breaks right, and let's say you give him the option-lated years, Benj, let's say, is productive, you get a good year out of Kyle Tucker, he opts out, maybe, AJ Ewing and the prospects continue to develop, you can slide one in, Ben can slide to the left, and you get some offensive production. But for me, with Bellinger, I think is more likely. But I just think if both markets continue to go down that it's optioned, or in Tucker's case, and if Bellinger gets down to 5 years, I just think the Yankees will get to that. So I don't think either of them are realistic. The Blue Jays, I think, are less likely now because they seem to just keep pissing money away. They signed Okamoto, last week. They already have a really deep team. And if you sign Kyle Tucker, like you signed Santander last year for $150 million, you've got Dalton Varsho's playing in center. You got Addison Barger. I'm like, yes, would you take Kyle Tucker over Addison Barger? Of course. But like, are they really about to go whip out another 8-year deal, $200, $300 million? Like, that's the kind of conversation where it's like, if he wants term and if the Blue Jays are serious, and at least that offer, that's why I don't think the Blue Jays are as serious now with them signing Okamoto. So it's like, if you're down in the Mets and the Dodgers, most rational people aren't picking us. So it's like, as much as I want Kyle Tucker, and I'm okay because, again, you got out of the Nimmo contract, and you can say, well, you're just doing that. You're also getting a better version of Brandon Nimmo 4 years younger. So like, if I would put a 6-year deal in front of Kyle Tucker and have my corner outfielders be Kyle Tucker and Juan Soto in the corners, and then, figure out if Carson Bench is playing center, and, maybe eventually Soto 5 years from now shift to DH, and if Bench is something, like, that's a really productive outfield. Again, do I expect either of these guys? No. But again, if they're trying to be opportunistic and everything falls perfectly, which, and I just don't see it because everything that they're trying to do, the better teams are also doing it. So why would a player come to the Mets when you have a better opportunity to win and make the same money to go to LA, or if the Blue Jays are in that option late in deal as well.
I mean, I think it's the fact that we're talking about the opportunistic part of it. There's really isn't much of a main pursuit. If the Dodgers are waiting for him to kind of fall in their laps, it obviously would end up being the Dodgers. The thing that really I question here about Kyle Tucker is if the Blue Jays have been noticed and said that they are willing to give a long-term deal, a 7-year deal, an 8-year deal to Kyle Tucker, why isn't he signed yet then? Like, why isn't he signed? Is he just waiting for the Dodgers to offer him something? Is he waiting for some other team? Where the hell, I mean, where is he from? He's from Florida. Is he waiting for, is he waiting for the Braves to offer him something? I don't know. But we'll see where that market takes us. It's very, very weird in a sense, but let's say if the Mets were to offer, let's say, $45 million a year for 3 years, 4 years, you have an opt-out after year 2 or whatever, because he would be going into what, a 28-year-old season, 29-year-old season. He'll be 30, going into a 31-year-old season. It's weird where the fit comes, obviously. Frank, I'll go to you on this. I mean, either of them I'm fine with. Either of them. I'm not going to say that they're guaranteed to get one of the two. However, because there is competitors, obviously. However, it's more of just the fact of, do they think that this lineup is good enough and deep enough to be like, okay, we're not going to pursue Kyle Tucker to the 5th year or 6th year, or maybe even the 7th year. Because when it comes to Bellinger, I would say 7 years is out of the question for me completely. Kyle Tucker, if I had to choose who I'm giving a 7-year deal to, I'm giving it to Kyle Tucker. So I think everybody does agree in that way. But it's weird how two of these markets line up to each other, because again, one's a Boris client, one is not. They both have one has a qualifying offer. So we'll see. This is odd, because I can see this helping the Mets in both ways. And then I'm also going to cling to another fact that maybe they just trade for a defensive center fielder. Like, I still think that that's possible. But I mean, what's the impression that you would say that you're getting off of this? Because it seems like we're getting different stuff every single day, that the Mets are looking at the outfield, but the market is just cold. Like, nothing's moving.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they're trying to be opportunistic. Like we said, they're trying to wait for the perfect scenario where it really works out for them. They're not trying to outbid anybody right now. They're just hoping that, like, if Kyle Tucker was willing to accept a more short-term, high AAV thing, that's something the Mets are more interested in. I think outside of Juan Soto, you're not going to see like these super, super long-term deals from the Mets. And that's just kind of what they've showed you. A lot of stuff has been like in that 2 to 3 year range as far as the deals they've been making. So like you said, 7 years for Corey Bellinger. I would say next to no chance the Mets do that. More like 6 to 7 years for Tucker. There's got to be some opt-outs in there. I think maybe for both sides, that might make both more likely to do that. But I think the Mets are more so like Andrew said, kind of like a Bregman deal, more so like a 3-year. You got to opt out in the middle. Good AAV. That seems something like the Mets would do, because my thing is that who's the opening day left fielder for the Mets right now? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at, is that, like, I mean, who is legitimately going to be out there? And if you don't get a Kyle Tucker, you don't get a Cody Bellinger, well, who do you get? I mean, because that's the big thing for me, too, is that you're talking about these two guys, but the drop-off after them is just, like, so drastic that it's like, would we really feel comfortable with any of these guys out there in left field, or just in our lineup in general? Because we also could use a DH, too. I mean, while we're at it, and obviously Kyle Tucker could do either one. So I just feel like if I'm the Mets, I feel like you kind of have to get one of them, because I mean, what else are you going to do? Like, how else are you going to make your team better and actually be a playoff team? Because this lineup, you got a lot of question marks here. You have left field, you have DH, you could throw third base in the mix. And if you're trading for another defensive center fielder, that's a problem in your lineup. Like, how many guys are you going to rotate through with that? You did Bader, you did Taylor, you did Siri, you did Mullins. I mean, what is the fifth time the charm? I mean, like, that hasn't worked out for them if they had to use 5 different guys in the span of 2 years. It's time to get serious and try to like actually pursue someone who could do something offensively instead of just focusing so much on the defense, because if you have to keep replacing them because your other areas in your offense, like DH, which you should have a super strong DH, they have not done that. It's kind of like the center fielder stands out more.
I'd say they have a strong DH as of right now, but he's filled into first base. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's the thing too. Because you moved him there, you need someone to DH, and that's kind of like. Before they
and
got
that's
Polanco,
where Bellinger comes in.
Yeah,
it's like
before they got
Polanco,
Polanco, my original argument for Bellinger was that, like, listen, the Mets can use a first baseman, they can use a center field, they can use a left fielder. Like, I just felt like Bellinger kind of does all of that. So I felt like he'd been a good early on move in the offseason, because it's like if you get lucky somewhere else, well, you just move Cody around. But now that they said Polanco is going to be playing first, it's like, it's still, I mean, because the thing too is that even if you did sign Cody to play first and you move Jorge to DH, well, you still need a left fielder. You know what I mean? It's just like there's still like those other issues.
It's more of the fact that they're trying to give us like a stepping stool to Carson Bench, who we all know that David Stearns loves. He loves Carson Bench. And listen, that was his first draft pick as the member of the Mets. Like we knew that he obviously is very high on the guy. And to be honest, he's kind of one of those Cody Bellinger types where it's the jack of all trades guys who can plays in the corner. He's this lanky, guy who could be a really good athlete and, give you all around type of production, where we're looking at like, a Nimmo ceiling bat, or we're looking at or from the other side of the ball, we're looking at maybe a Cody Bellinger type of defensive or athlete. I think that's basically the reason as to why he likes Benj so much. But if you're going to be banking on that so much, you got to have Benj up here pretty early. You can't just be like, okay, well, Benj is going to be a September call up and he's going to be like a trade deadline acquisition to push us to the playoffs. Like that's like we don't have, we did that 10 years ago. That was our old ways with when they brought up Michael Conforto very quickly, and he was one of the guys that helped them get to 2025. Like that's the type of mindset that the Mets kind of need to stem off of. If they're trying to keep a pillow and a stepping stool for Carson Bench, I would say that Bellinger makes the most sense, because he could play first base. He can open up left field for Benj, which I think Benj plays the best. He probably fits the best in left field. And then you can just basically say, well, you sign Cody Bellinger and maybe you trade for a defensive center fielder, whether that is a guy like Brenton Doyle, who's been mentioned, Jake Myers has been mentioned. These guys who can give you a quality bat in center field. However, could that listen, when we talk about guys like Bader and we talk about, Taylor or Siri, or like we saw the very best of those players. Like they're all going into their 30s. When you're talking about the young pieces like Robert, who still has a little bit of time left, but it's very, very limited. You have guys like Brenton Doyle, who has just not been able to stay healthy, and he's still pretty young. Jake Myers, I think, is like 28, 29. Like there's still a little bit left in those bats, and they have shown a decent amount as to where they profile well to where they're not a complete liability offensively. Still, who knows? They put on a Mets uniform, they just completely disintegrate into that. But however, I do actually trust that this new hitting staff and this new hitting staff of coaches will try to prevent that in some way. I'd say that Bellinger probably makes the most sense roster construction wise. I'd say that lineup wise, you're going into Kyle Tucker. I don't know how run prevention suits itself when you're talking about Kyle Tucker in the corners along with Juan Soto, because Tucker's defense has fallen out of favor in these last few years. I'm not going to say that he's, a gold glove defender, and that fits into the run prevention. But when you're talking about, okay, he's there at the end of January or, in the middle of February, he's there for 4 years, I'm not going to say no. But when it comes to Bellinger or like getting him earlier on in the off season, like you said, Frank, I mean, if he's looking for 7 years, I mean, what was he looking for a month ago? Like he may have been looking for 8, 9.
So that was the other thing I was gonna say too, is that like that report about the Yankees, like if the Yankees actually offered him 30, per at like around 5 years, I'm not touching that. I mean, like I'm not trying to top that. No. I'm not giving him 7 years. I don't even want to give him 30 million. I mean, like he's a solid player. Don't get me wrong. Like he helps a ball club, but I don't think he's a 30 million kind of guy. I really don't.
I think he's a 30 million type of guy if it's on 2 or 3 years. That's
exactly.
It.
I mean, if you're going a few years more than that, it's just too much. He's had his own injuries. We know that. He's had his own ups and downs too. Like, I mean, before this year with the Yankees, he had a little bit of a rough year. So there's also that aspect of it too that's gotta make you a little concerned. Like he's not someone who like year in year out is putting up amazing numbers, but like you said, it's more so just that he provides defense and offense, where I just feel like right now it's like this team has to figure out, like I always kind of say this too, like what does this Mets team do well? Like what is their strength? I feel like they don't have that right now. They don't have like a set identity, like, oh, this is a great offensive team, this is a great pitching team. Like you can't say any of that. So it's like they have to decide, like, what are we gonna do? Like, or if I feel like if you're building around Lindor and Soto, those are your two guys who are here for a long time. Like we said, you have to protect one. So that's the thing that has to be talked about too, is that like, you know what, you need a left fielder, but also you want someone to bat after Juan Soto. And to me, Polanco's not that guy. I mean, even Polanco at his best, I still don't think he's that guy. So that's the other aspect too, is that it's not so much how they fit with, the field of like what positions available, but also how do they fit with your stars? How do they fit with the current guys you already have? That's the other aspect too, when they're plugging somebody in. Even if like they haven't even talked about Bregman at all, so I mean that's a whole other issue. No, but like, I mean, they got to get something. Whether it's they definitely need an outfielder, but like the interest in general, like they could just use another bat, like a good bat in the middle of this order.
Yeah, they obviously do need to kind of like get the middle of this lineup. They have to add something. I'd say that at highest at best, they're going to get a plus bat and they're going to get a plus defender. That's what I think that they're going to end up doing, because we also talk about the bench depth as well. Because I do believe that one of Vientos or Acuna, like someone's going to have to go. Like we said, they're out of minor league options. If it ends up happening, I don't know. But we all know that the Mets like to have a conglomerate of 700 third basemen, and they like to just like to hoard these pieces. I will say that on the market as of right now, the trade market for position players, like it has kind of died down. When Easy comes here in the chat saying, how does Marte being off the trade market, which he was just taken off, like it was announced, Ken Rosenthal put it out. He said that Marte is not getting traded this offseason. So the Diamondbacks basically cut all ties there, even though they were listening in on him. Obviously a long-term contract to move with a bargain AAV. I don't know how much it affects the Mets, but I do think because Marte would be playing out of position if the Mets were to end up getting him. We knew that the Ketel Marte, not Starling Marte, Ketel Marte, that whole talk about, trading for him came out right after when they traded Jeff McNeil. And we all knew that when that report came out, they already had Marcus Semien here. They already had all of these prospects that maybe get moved. Maybe they are seen as utility pieces, like we said that Jeff McNeil was seen as before he was traded. And I think that there is more of a thought as to what they're doing with Polanco, or if there was the thought of what they were doing possibly with Ketel Marte, who probably would have been playing left field, because in center field he's an awful defender, and he's gotten even older even recently, and he gets banged up a little bit, so he probably would be playing left field. And to me, it's like maybe the run prevention is looking at it, because he's done this in Milwaukee before. Maybe he's looking at it from a run prevention standpoint of, let's get good athletes in less taxing positions, like Polanco, who is a good athlete, we put him at first base in a less taxing position, and that's where we saw them do it with Keston Hiura before. We saw them, obviously, they had to do it with Christian Yelich because he was so banged up in Milwaukee. They had to kind of switch these less taxing positions to good athletes and then get that type of run prevention there, because we saw him do that in Milwaukee. Do I agree with that? I don't think Polanco should be playing first base. I'm a little skeptical of him playing first base, but I'm not looking at him as the Alonso replacement. I'm just looking at him as first baseman. Like, that's literally it, because Alonso is out of my mind as of right now. And if they're building a deeper team and they're building, the star power, that's where Kyle Tucker comes into the mix. But again, we'll see where they end up going here, because we also have seen the outfield trade market. When you're talking about it from an upgrade standpoint of the guys that I still think it's more possible that they end up trading for a defensive first center fielder, or a defensive center fielder who also has a pretty good enough bat that maybe they trust their coaches with. Brenton Doyle is one of them. Had an awful year last year because he was really, really banged up. But I'll tell you one thing about his offensive profile. He hits the ball really, really hard. He can steal a lot of bases. He plays fantastic defense in center field. Jake Myers coming off of a really good career year as well from the bottom part of the Astros lineup. Let's not forget who Jake Myers plays for, the Houston Astros. He was also someone who was with the Houston Astros while Troy Snitker, the Mets hitting coach, was there. So I don't know if there's a connection there as well. And then there's Luis Robert, who is basically someone who you would basically risk for upside. And we'll see. I am interested to see how they configure this outfield, because we all knew, because to me, I am expecting Tyrone Taylor to be in the opening day lineup. I know he's going to be in the opening day lineup, because I don't think that they're going to fill two outfield spots. Because when you look at Bellinger and Tucker, why would you trade Brandon Nimmo's contract away just to give them those hefty deals of what they're obviously pursuing? And even if you're talking about for 3 or 4 years, again, you still have room to do it. The Mets have maneuver to do it, and I'll get into a report that said that the Mets do have a lot of room to do so, and they're willing to go even over that threshold. But is there a thought that says, okay, maybe they're just going to put up a platform for the kids and see where it goes? I don't know. I have no idea. And listen, if that's what their main focus is, you got to pull the plug at some point. You can't just say, well, we're going to wait until bench till September. Get him up here. Get him up here as much as enough time has passed. If once he gets a decent amount of AAA ABs, because we know that in AAA he did not have a good sample, and it was a small sample. It's like 100 plate appearances. He struggled a little bit in AAA, which, again, he's 22 years old. And Brad's saying, people are going to act like Tyrone Taylor is the worst player ever. He's the worst everyday player probably on this team. Actually, no, Acuna. Acuna's probably the worst everyday player on the team.
But he doesn't play every day, though.
He doesn't play every day. I think Tyrone Taylor could probably take a decent amount of playing time. He could bat ninth. However, we'll see how they do so, but I do want to see them bring in either a veteran or some upside in that outfield if they don't go the Bellinger Tucker way. Ryan Stanek has signed with the Cardinals, so is he rejoining Phil Maton?
No, because they traded Maton. Where the hell? Or Maton? They traded.
Oh no, Maton's not the Cardinals anymore. I was gonna say they were both Mets at one time.
Maton's not.
Yeah, there was that report.
Oh no, he went to Chicago.
No, they flipped him to Texas.
Wow.
Oh.
Got him. Yeah, now he flipped him.
Yeah,
he was in the first free agent signing. Remember, everyone was making a big deal. Why the hell's Phil Maton being the first major league?
While we are live, two of our biggest free agents, Madrigal and Stanek, who are actually probably the worst of the guys listed on here, right?
Probably. I mean, Drew Smith exists, so.
Drew Smith doesn't even exist. He's hurt. But yeah. they end up going elsewhere. Yeah, Maton's a Cub now. Maton's the first series of culture-changing moves. Absolutely. Rowan Talk. I could see steam coming out of Frank's ears. I mean, Tyrone Taylor is a fourth outfielder. We know he is. He could start in a pinch for you. However, we know that they are going to have to make a move to this outfield, because if we're going to go into opening day, they're not getting two outfielders. It's just not going to happen.
They could use.
If we're going to go into opening day with the opening day lineup, and our outfield is Benj in left field, Tyrone Taylor in center, and Juan Soto in right, I don't know how that's going to bode well at all. So it does seem to be, maybe it's Tucker or Bellinger, but I still am going to lead on the notion that I feel like the move is going to be a defensive first center fielder or an upside center fielder to keep the pillow for Carson Benj in those outfield spots where Tyrone Taylor takes left field.
Yeah, I still think, though, if you're the Mets, like when you trade Nimmo like so many months ago and you're like, okay, I'm trading an outfielder for an infielder, I would hope you have like some kind of idea of like who you would want to replace Nimmo with. I mean, because that move happened months ago at this point, and that spot is still open. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
And it's like, I just feel like even
I think
the
line of thinking is more of like a strings attached.
I know the
thing
contract things. Like I understand.
I think
that.
the line of thinking was the strings attached.
I get that, but
yeah, you're talking about basically if you want to go player for player, I think the thought is Polanco is replacing Nimmo's production.
He's still an infielder, though. It's not even so much.
But I'm not talking about position for position. I'm talking about, like we're saying, production into the lineup. Like we said, we need to add production into the lineup. Like if you talk about Polanco similarly is to basically what you get from Brandon Nimmo, right? That type of all-around type
year
of piece.
from Polanco, yes.
In a career year from Polanco, yes, but he has actually had a pretty good career overall. So it's not like he's just some bum who came to Seattle and he was fantastic. He's had some really good offensive years throughout his entire career. He is a career, and he's been in the league for what, 10, 11 years? He's been in the league for 10 and 11 years. He's a career 112 weighted runs created plus hitter, and he's accumulated a lot throughout his career of a really good hitter overall. Defensively, maybe they're just like, okay, maybe he can play just first base here, but I don't want them to end up doing that. And that's why I feel like Bellinger comes into the mix here a lot better. But when we're still getting reports that he wants a 7-year deal, I don't know where you're going with that. Like I really don't know where you're going with that. And if the 7-year deal is the only ask here for him, then they probably would have to shift off to that and just be like, okay, let's get to the trade market. Let's sign someone. I feel like, are they looking at it positional value? Because we know that they have it as run prevention. Or are they looking at it for overall offensive value to add to the lineup? Or are they just saying, well, we know that Alvarez has the potential to fill this in, and we like Carson Benj, and we think Beatty's the future of this team at third base, even though he's not, and he's not a good player. But anyways, if you were to talk about them fixing up the lineup, there's still holes in it overall, and you'd say, okay, get Tucker here, and that would move probably Soto to left field. That would put Tucker in right field, whose arm is not very strong, but it's accurate. However, his defense has kind of fallen off a little bit over the last few years. He's not as healthy. I think that it helps the Mets lineup. Both of them help. But I think Bellinger, right now, with how this team is set, if you're talking about it positionally right now, I think Bellinger is the better fit. 100% the better fit.
Because again, my thing is that I think Bellinger's unrealistic with how he's like the top priority for the Yankees right now. I feel like the Yankees are really trying to bring him back. So like we said, if it's
Maybe.
5 years, if it's 7 years, I just don't see the Mets doing that. And then with Tucker, like I feel like you don't want to be involved with the Blue Jays and Dodgers. I feel like they have shown to be more aggressive than the Mets, especially in this offseason. So to me, I find both of them unrealistic. And when I go to the free agents, if you just plug in these guys onto the Mets and say, like, how are the Mets with this player, with that player, like, it's brutal. Like, the first guy up in left field is Miguel Andujar. Like, that is the highest ranked free agent left fielder when you are not talking about Cody Bellinger or Kyle Tucker.
This is why I think the trade market is so much more so much more possible because of the lack of options you have at these young infielders, the log jams you have created as of right now on the market. Even with Jeff McNeil gone, they still have a conglomerate of infielders still here, some of them out of options.
But again, they kind of did that to themselves, trading an outfielder for an infielder, and then next move was sign Polanco, another infielder. So like they're putting themselves in that position more and more. Like yes, you traded McNeil, but McNeil was the only guy out of that group that could play the outfield.
But it makes sense as to why they did it, because they needed to shore the defense up the middle with Simeon and Lindor because of how awful Lindor and McNeil are. We're up the middle for fucking years.
I understand that, but then you put an inexperienced first baseman, you could kind of defeat that a little bit. Like
that is true.
That's kind of where I do want to see more consistency.
And that's
in
where
their
Bellinger
approach.
comes in. Bellinger comes in.
Bellinger comes, but I'm saying if they don't.
Yeah,
that's where it gets interesting, because if you trade for a defensive first center fielder, that still doesn't help your left field problem. Like that's still even if you move Taylor to left, like that's still not gonna help them either. So my thing is like who's the offensive outfielder that's out there in the trade market? Because I mean, even both Doyle and Myers, like there's risk involved there. I mean, Myers hit 3 home runs last year. Doyle, number one Coors Field, number 2 wasn't very good, and he played 140 games, wasn't that banged up. So. Like it's risky, and like you said, I mean, you want to go binge. Like we talk about, banking on a rookie.
Maybe they trade for a corner outfielder. They move Soto to left, and they have Tyrone Taylor in center field. Like,
I'm okay with the Taylor or defensive first if you get another big bat in the corner. Yeah. But I don't think you can't. I don't think you could go avenue where like you don't get a big bat in the corners and you trade for a defensive center field.
We saw a little bit about.
I think if you do
they should
both,
sign Max Kepler. By the way, Max Kepler, you fucking idiot. By the way,
I know, right?
Imagine having your worst year on steroids in CBP as well. That's gotta suck, right? Yeah. By the way, Andrew, I'll clue you in on here. By the way, like I said, the corner pieces, right? I don't know if this fits the best way. I'm just going to say the corner pieces. We saw some stuff about Lars Nootbaar, right? To play, whether it was right field or left field, because he can play all three of them. Regularly, he plays left field. He can give you that defense. We've heard about, them making him available. I think he's in his last year of control, right?
No, Newt's got 2 years. Got 2 years.
2 years left? You're right. He does have 2 years left because his rookie year was small. He's going into a 28-year-old season. There's still upside in the bat, like we said, in that, that realm of, like I said, with Robert or you're talking about Brenton Doyle. I don't know where those, again, those types of pieces where you're like, that they still have something left. And listen, Nootbaar, I don't think is perfect. But it's more of just the fact of basically just trying to make the bed for Carson Bench. Because, again, I'm talking about, like, in the thought process of the Mets. I'm not saying, I am head over heels. I want to get Lars Nootbaar right now. I 100% want Jake Myers. I 100% want Brenton Doyle. But in the mind of, in acceptance to they really like Carson Bench and they really think that he can be a contributor for this team in 2026. Is that the point as to where you're like, maybe you go for a corner outfield guy and you have Taylor kind of locked down center field?
Yeah, as you guys were yapping, I was low-key trying to figure out this outfield trade potential market and, look at the free agent class. I'm like, it's like Newt is literally pulled up right now. And I made the joke originally when this rumor came out. It's literally, you want to trade Brandon Nimmo and replace Brandon Nimmo with a younger version of Brandon Nimmo, because Lars Nootbaar at his best is just what Brandon Nimmo is.
Yeah.
When a younger Nimmo, solid defender, loves to walk, has a noodle in the arm. Like, I think I think it'd be a fine kind of, stopgap left fielder. It's raising the floor again. It's a guy who's had a rough year last year. The Cardinals are open for business. They're trying to obviously dump off Brendan Donovan first and get a haul for him, and then I think they'd probably then get back to the Newport and obviously Arenado as well being in that dump. But again, like, if you're looking at the corner market, do you maybe call back San Diego and reconsider Ramon Laureano? Like, that could be something. Like, if you're just trying to find a bat,
thing.
just to,
yeah,
like that, just so, like, I would call Boston, and I prefer Willie Abreu. Like, that'd be the guy I'm trying to get into this. Sure. Against another left-handed bat, which I don't love. Again, I'd love it to be a right-handed bat. I'm trying to, like, there's not, like, I'm not talking to Stephen Kwan. Like, the Rays don't have anything. It's like, does Baltimore, like, they got too many outfielders? Like, do you maybe try to get like a Dylan Beavers? Like, that's something. Like, obviously now that you have Tyler O'Neill, I don't want Tyler O'Neill. Like, you look at teams like Brandon Doyle, and I'm excluding like Robert and Doyle because I think that's more realistic. I mean, do you call the Angels? Maybe try to put Joe Adell in left field, get him out of center. Like, there are options out there. Yeah. Again, I'm always creative with it. Guys, I'm creative with this shit. But, like, there are options. Like, there are ways to do it. And, like, it's just to the point that they believe in Carson Benz. Like, we're playing this. Carson Benz. Like, that's the guy they want. And so it might be a stopgap. It might be Austin Hayes for a month or two. Carson Benz goes down to AAA and hits. Yeah, he's here in mid-May. Like, that's what they want to do.
Yeah, that's the level. Like, Austin Hayes, that's where you get to the level. It's like, okay,
trust me. And I will go get the cannon and I will load the polar bear up and I will shoot it at David Stearns when that happens. But, like, that's what he wants. Like a Ramon Laureano. You could get insane. Like, I'm just trying to, like, the A's. I would thought, the A's would move an outfield. They're not. Like, there are options out there, but the Boston guys are priced out insane. Like, it's just a weird market. And then we look at the free agent class; it's even worse. So, like, and I try, and I say I could poke home fun at David Stearns. I trust him, but, like, again, we've seen, like, again, Buxton in the chat, like, he's not going anywhere. Because they're dumb enough and they think, they're going to be competitive. Let's not just blow this up. Like, the Diamondbacks have a bunch of the noodle guys. Like, we talk about, like, just a stopgap. Like, I don't want Jake McCarthy. I don't want an Alec Thomas. Like, those are the type of names that you'll probably see. Like, do you try to do, like, a prospect trade? Like, do you maybe use some of your prospect capital and flip? Like, there's just no clear cut. We look at the Bellinger stuff, and it's like,
there is one if you're talking about the corner outfield, and like I said, he would have to play left field, and Soto would still have to be in right. However, I don't think he's that good of a defensive outfielder anymore. He has one more year of control after that extension that he signed. Could Ian Happ be on the move? Is that someone that they get? But again, that's basically their Brandon Nimmo, right? Yeah, like, he's basically their Brandon Nimmo.
How many years have I talked about him?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But
that is a Polaire man right there. That's a Polaire man. He does not know what the ground tastes like. All right, at all.
Switch hitter.
Yeah, he's a switch hitter as well. He always has the advantage.
He's very consistent.
Crushes fastballs, by the way. Yeah. That would be a good ad, but he would be a rental, right? Because he's signed through 2026. He's a free agent in 2027. Would that be something?
Again,
but they could, like, again, they also have to make a move themselves, right? Like,
they don't have any outfielders left. They got Thea back in the outfield. Now with Tucker gone and Casey gone, they ain't got no outfielders. They're not trading that. Like, it's a free agent mint, but again, he's at like 33 next year. Someone
mentioned in the chat Alec Thomas was another one. Isn't he more of?
He's defense.
He's more a corner. Yeah, He's more defense. Again, it all really just goes to show, I think they kind of have to make a trade with the log jams that they have, but we'll see. Why is everyone obsessed with Carson Bench? The kid isn't ready yet. He's still years away. I don't think he's years away, but he does
not
need
years away, months away.
He needs a decent amount of ABs. But one, he has a really cool first name. Two, David Stearns really likes him. That's why we're saying this in the mindset of David Stearns wants Benj on this team, because David Stearns loves Carson Bench. Because every single report that comes out, and not to mention he's his first round pick, it's more of the fact of everything that comes out, we hear McLean is seen as untouchable, but Benj is really close to that. So that's how much they like him. And if they're trying to put in a stepping stone for Carson Bench to come in mid-season or at any point during the season, after he's gotten a decent amount of AAA ABs, let's just say if they were to trade for a corner outfielder or a defensive first center fielder, there are options out there, like Andrew just said. Do I think that they're elite options? Not really. I mean, if you want to talk elite, that pretty much takes Benj out of the equation. He probably would go back in that trade, and that being Buxton. But Buxton has talked about maybe he's willing. Maybe he's willing to move him. Like maybe he's willing to move his no trade clause.
Buxton said he is not leaving Minnesota this past year. He said it flat out. So
and then there was something from Rosenthal. He was like he was willing to like certain player. But here's the deal: if you're getting rid of Brandon Nimmo for his injury issues, why the hell are you bringing in Byron Buxton, who, as he continues to get older,
he's too risky.
As Tony is saying here in the chat, made of glass. So it's more the fact of, yes, it would be a short-term thing, and Buxton obviously is a long-term because he is a star in this game when he's healthy. But when you're talking about it short-term, and you want Benj into that equation, it either makes sense to make a move for an outfielder or you're signing Cody Bellinger. And that's where I feel like they're looking at it from an opportunistic standpoint, because you could lock down the corners with Tucker and Soto. I don't know if that really plays into the run prevention. And I personally just don't think there is a thought as to where we want to block out Carson Bench and we also want to put him in center field, because I don't think he profiles as a center fielder, and I don't think that they see him as one. So we'll see where that goes. We know that Tyrone Taylor is a free agent after this upcoming season. So I don't know where they go with that. However, when you're talking about like Austin Hayes or like what Frank, like what you were mentioning, Miguel and Duhar, like I have no interest in that. I don't.
Michael Conforto, he's on there. I mean, you want
Michael Conforto's available. Yes. I don't know why you would demolish the entire 2019 core and then bring him back, but
no, like the left field options, it shows Winker, Conforto, Canna, Pham, all former Mets. You know what I mean? Like it's just like all worser versions of it, and then Austin Hayes is on there, like that. Like that's what we're looking at. Travis Jankowski,
also available on the free agent market. Dom Smith, who's played left field for us as well.
Like Harrison Bader, like these are the guys that are available. Like Starling Marte, like a lot of the top remaining guys, and I use that term very loosely. It's all former Mets. So it's like, do we really want to like run it back with any of these guys?
Yeah,
like it's
rehash. Yeah,
it's just not. Yeah. It's not a lot available.
Yeah, Christopher saying, one of you explain this to me in detail. Why does Stearns only care about 3 years? Does he want to win? It doesn't show he does, and he's supposed to be a fan like us. Okay. I think that there's more of the fact of he wants to keep everything flexible and he wants to give the kids an opportunity to play. And I get that that's something that Mets fans do not want to hear, and they want to get the big name free agents. But as for when you're talking about the big name free agents or the big name contracts that they give out, it's really hard to justify them continuing to do so, because all these contracts that they have given out, let's say 9 times out of 10, it's blown up in their face. And I'm not saying that Starling Marte was a bad player and he wasn't a great influence and he's the only reason why, we got Soto because of him, right? Because David Stearns did nothing. Again, I'm not going to say threatening, but like measuring up to David Stearns and saying, you're supposed to be a fan like us. Why does he care about only giving 3 years? It's because of the contracts that get tied in to this team without you even making those moves. I mean, if you see some of the money that is on the books, I think everybody would elect to move it if they're given the chance, right? Sean Manaea, I'd move Sean Manaea. I would move Clay Holmes if the right offer appears.
Yeah, but he brought that money in. He signed both those guys.
He brought that money in, and he also brought him back after the fan base, like a fan like us, wanted him back after that performance he had in 2024. So it's like everything that they have done or they've tried to retain, or that old 2024 team that Stearns gave you a chance to win and they added Juan Soto, it's like, how many times are we going to continue to play revisionist history with this when it's like, okay, these contracts that you tie in here, they can go south real quick. I'm sure everybody feels different about Sean Manaea right now than they did this time right now last year. They probably feel, because this was before he even got his injury in spring training in 2025. So they're like, oh, Manaea's back. He had a great year. He's on a pretty decent contract. He took a little bit of a pay cut. He took deferrals. Awesome. Now you're looking at it. You're like, oh, $20 million, $22 million a year for Sean Manaea after the season he just had? Hell no. Nobody wants that right now. And I believe that Manaea can still harvest something because I still believe in that stuff. I just think he needs to get healthy, which is also not that much of a guarantee. So, again, there's guys who become sunk costs real quickly. Guys like Cody Bellinger, who we have talked about, likely will not age well. He has had injury history before. He's had really bad seasons before. Somebody in our chat earlier said that, he's a bad signing because the Cubs basically let him go for free. Like they just let him go for basically nothing. What did they get in return for that trade? It was like nothing. So
yeah, who the hell was?
They get nothing. Like they got nothing. So there's ups and downs to it. I'd say that the characteristics that are filling Cody Bellinger, they make sense, but they make sense on a short-term deal. And even if they don't, Bellinger's seeking a 7-year deal. Who is giving him that? No one's given him that yet. Because if he has, he would have took it already. Because we know a Boris client goes to the highest bidder. Like, let's say if 7 years comes to the table of Bellinger and Boris, they're taking it whether it comes from the Rockies or it comes from the Yankees. You know, like there goes the highest bidder. Remember Chris Bryant? Remember that guy? Nobody talks about him anymore. So it's like, why would you pursue Bellinger as a 7-year contract when you don't have to right now? You just don't. And this is another one that was brought up of the position player personnel, and we'll get into pitching in a second. Senga and prospects for Christian Walker and Abreu. I think that's the reliever, not Jose Abreu. They let him go, right? They're paying him to fuck off. Walker, I'd say I think there's something left in that bat. Would I be willing to pay the whole contract to find out? Probably not. He's making the same amount as Polanco, right?
Yeah, I think
20
it's like
million
20
a year,
million, like-
something like that.
Yeah.
Christian Walker did have a really good second half. He did.
Yep.
Still has a
Still
really
good
good hitting
defender at first,
profile.
Almost
He's a
as old
really
as
good
me.
defender at first base. So that does fall in a little bit as to
Another
where
guy,
you're like, okay,
34
they
and
still
above.
want a right-handed bat.
Yep.
They still want a right-handed bat, right? We saw that report from Will Salmon saying a right-handed bat, and that'd be somebody that could play first base. It's not my first option, not at all. But let's say if you're talking about the DH production and the first base production from two players, Corey Polanco can pop you 20, then you have 25 from Christian Walker with a little bit more of an all-around hitter. I'd say that fills it in properly, but it wouldn't be my first choice. I wouldn't be mad, but it wouldn't be my first choice. He has 2 years left, right? 2 years.
Yep.
Oh.
Again, there's a stepping stone as to what I feel like they are trying to set. One of them is Benj. I don't know if one of them is Clifford, but when you talk about the conglomerate of middle infielders they have right now, it might as well be. So when you see Pete Alonso go, right, and you look at, all of these pieces, I don't know where they go from here. I think that they want a ideal first baseman if they get somebody to put in first base who can play that position. Isaac Paredes, he's more of a third baseman, isn't he? Like, that's another guy. It's like
He could play all over the infield,
he can play all over the infield,
which I feel like is something they could use a lot more. And I would so much rather have a guy who's 27 than a guy who's 35. So that'd be much more
true.
what I'm looking
Yeah.
at. Guy was above league average, this guy was below
like-
league average. Like,
I like Paredes a lot.
yeah, I'd be looking much more
and-
at that.
And the Mets would like Paredes a lot as well, because he is the king of pulling fly balls. I can't believe we're a pull fly ball team now. This is great. It brings a tear to my eye. You know what I mean? Like the Mets are finally out of the woods from, well, we need our slap hitters and oh man, this is great. Anyways, there's plenty of avenues that they can go by. And to be honest, some of the guys in the outfield market are those pieces in the outfield market. Let's just say it's like maybe there's somebody that we didn't even mention that they end up getting in the trade market. There could be somebody that it's not even mentioned. We were like, maybe. I was like, was he available? I didn't even know he was available. Like we don't know. Hopefully it's a good I didn't know it was available, because if let's say they're trading for somebody like I don't know, go to one of the worst teams. Let's say they trade for Joey Weimer. You know what I mean? Like somebody like that, like someone that shitty. Even though I think Joey Weimer was just traded to the Nationals.
Yeah.
Like I'm just saying, like that level of don't get another fourth outfielder. That's what I'm saying. Like don't get the upside of another fourth outfielder. Which again, all the guys that we mentioned are starting caliber players, and they could help the lineup at their very best. I don't know about for 50th percentile, because some of the guys have not done well. We know that Robert has not had a good stretch recently. These last 2 seasons have not been good for him. He's been good in spurts, but not anything crazy. Jake Myers is nothing special with the bat. Brenton Doyle has pop in his bat, but he gets injured all the goddamn time. So there's plenty to look at, and I don't know what approach they look at. It's like, okay, are they looking for defense? Are they looking for youth? Are they looking for a stepping stone? Are they looking for a cheap option to build a bridge to give a chance to Carson Bench? Are they looking to do that? Is Carson Bench in the 2026 timeline? Because he still needs to play a decent amount of AAA. So I'm interested. I really am. But I'd say if you're talking about the most fit, and we'll go to the chat here. Wow, 28% of you guys are saying that Bellinger is the better fit for the Mets. 62% of you are saying that Tucker is the better fit for the Mets. And 11% of you are saying that neither are a good fit. So I am a little surprised considering, but I don't know if Mets fans see it's like, oh, nobody should play first base because Pete Alonso's gone. Yeah, but nobody should play first base because Pete Alonso's gone. We'll just leave it empty. We'll put a shrine next to it.
Maybe put an actual polar bear there.
Just a bag of Cheetos. Also, I just look. Obviously, we all know that Isaac Paredes, the leader of pulling the ball, into that corner. If he played at Citi Field for all his games, he'd have 12 homers. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I get it. I get it. He's Mr.
Welcome
Coleman,
to Crawford boxes.
Exactly. So it is something. Everyone's like, oh, like Isak's great, not a good defender either. But it's like, yeah, it's an option. Don't get me wrong. If they trade it for Isak, it's okay. But there's again the risk of we do not play in a little ballpark, so he doesn't have that. Let me pitch it down the left field line. Yeah, we don't have that. So that is something to keep in mind.
I mean, Paredes. Yeah, Paredes is more of certain fit. I mean, he was with the Rays. They were in a minor league ballpark, I think, right? When he was there. Or
no, he didn't
play
in that. No, he pulled it down that left field line at the trough.
Yeah, the left field line too. If you
and then he goes to
again, if you're a pull line drive, pull fly ball type of guy, that's fine. But also Paredes got banged up a lot last year too, right?
Yeah,
he got banged up a little bit too. So again, I don't know what they're looking for. I really don't know what they're looking for at all. And Paredes is 27, so it's not like he's there's still a little bit left there. But also, if you're talking about this infield, more third base, and he's played a little bit of DH. He maybe could play first base. You might as well, at that point, wouldn't trade assets for Isaac Paredes. Just say, okay, well, Jorge Polanco's my first baseman, because then you're bringing in two guys who don't regularly play first base. So, and again, like I said, good athletes, you put them in the least taxing position, you get good run prevention. We've seen that before. Even the Phillies did that with Bryce Harper, but they had to do it. Like they were forced to because of his injury history. And Brad's saying it perfectly. The outfield market is gross. It really is. You look at the outfield market right now. You have Tucker and Bellinger who are headlining the market. The third best is probably Bader right now.
Yeah.
Bader. And then it's like, I mean, it's a Home Depot squad. Like, literally, that's literally it. Like, that's all that's left.
Yeah,
Conforto. Conforto's still there. Who is going to 100% bounce back. But, again, the outfield market, it's thin. And it's weird, and that's why I think there's more options on the trade market. And like we said, with the flexibility of the roster, it's like, yeah. And Paredes did, yeah, that's right. Paredes had, 2 homers against Verlander or something? I don't know. Something.
Was that that's that bad year we forget about it. But guys, how have we not said the right-handed bat to play first base?
Spirit Halloween employees, that's another way to, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the bat is obvious who it's going to be. It's a guy we've already had, and we had interest in last year. We didn't trade for. Stearns has already said he likes this guy. This team has about 900 first basemen. Get ready to learn Ryan Mountcastle. He's going to be your starting everyday first baseman. Austin Hayes is going to be in left, and Austin Hayes in left, and Ryan Mountcastle at first base. There you go, guys. That'll be first in the outfield. There you go. And everyone's going to shoot out.
And we'll see where they shift to. And we obviously have the pitching market to talk about too. But we did get a report from John Heyman saying that Mets owner Steve Cohen is letting Stearns handle things. Sorry, everyone. Cohen gave Stearns a tentative budget in the 340 to 350 range, similar to last year's payroll. But as is his way, if there is an opportunity, Cohen would allow Stearns to blow through it, which I think that opportunity is Kyle Tucker, right? It has to be Kyle Tucker. There's no way it's not. Right now, the payroll is at 301 before the tax. The tax is obviously a different it's different. Obviously, you're at 340 right now, and it doesn't make any sense that that's what it's at. So if they're trying to stay within that, it's probably like what a soft, let's say a soft budget to where it's like 40 or 50 million to spend. So you're talking about like, I don't know, maybe there's a starting pitcher, maybe there's a trade in there, maybe there's a reliever, and we don't know what else they do to the lineup. I don't know. I feel like right now in that certain square of a soft budget, like it's very subjective. Again, like I said, 1+ bat, 1+ defender, 1 starter, 1 reliever of big notice, like I said, because there could be other things that they end up doing. Whether that's through trade, I don't know. Whether that's through free agency signing, I don't know, but they have the room to maneuver that. And also, when we're talking about the rotation, someone's going to have to get moved. Someone will have to get moved, unless they're looking at moving Clay Holmes to the bullpen, which I don't think that they are. The deal that I think that is being made here is they're kind of waiting for things to they're waiting for things to settle, but the starting pitching market is even slower than the outfield market, the position player market. Like, nothing's moving. And I will say one thing. I also think that Dylan Cease contract scared the living crap out of everyone. I think that everyone is scared. And why we are seeing the Cubs pivot to Edward Cabrera or Sonny Gray getting traded for, or who else was dealt? There was somebody else. There was one other starter.
Shane Baz.
Shane Baz was traded. Like, we're seeing them pivot to those controllable options on the starting market of guys who maybe have upside, but they're back end rotation guys at this current moment. So I don't know where that goes, but let's get into the pitching. Because we haven't really talked that much about the big game hunting of the pitching staff, of where they go, because right now, like we said, in roster spots, they don't really have any room to add a pitcher right now. If you're talking about guys you expect to be on the roster, like we said, Sean Manaea will get a rotation spot. Clay Holmes will get a rotation spot. David Peterson right now has a rotation spot. So you also have Nolan McLean, and they have Sproat and Tong and Scott, who they want to give leeway to get innings in the major leagues. So when you look at the wide net that the Mets are casting, Salmon and Rosenthal, they've been collabing a lot recently on The Athletic, saying that the Mets remain focused on adding rotation help, weighing everything from a trade for a frontline arm to a short-term deal for a frontline starter, with mid-tier options also in play if bigger moves don't line up. The Mets hold some interest in the top remaining free agent starters, including Valdez, but their focus is on first exploring trades, a league source said. As of early of Tuesday, no deal appears imminent, and people familiar with the discussions cautioned that things are slow. The Mets are interested in both rentals and starting pitchers with control. Tyreek Skubal, Freddie Peralta, Mackenzie Gore, Chris Bubich, Brady Singer are all among the conceivable options. Buster Olney on ESPN.com said that the Mets, with them needing help in their rotation, it seems inevitable that they'll land one of Framer Valdez or Ranger Suarez as they continue to explore the starting pitcher market. Take that as you will. We haven't really heard much about Suarez and the Mets being attached to him. I'll talk about that in a second. And then John Heyman said that in regards to Valdez, he's looking for a big deal. At this point, it's unlikely that Valdez gets over $200 million, but he should get. And I could see that the And I could see the Orioles or the Mets. I think my headset just died because for some reason it does not charge overnight, and that's annoying. Anyways, either way, Andrew, we talked about Suarez earlier on in the offseason of how that's somebody that we would try to avoid because it's necessarily not what this team needs. And he's also not somebody that you would give up a draft pick for. Like, it's really not someone you would, because on a contending team, this is a middle of rotation guy. Yes, he has had a great postseason career. He has. However, that's not the type of guy that you go all in on, especially when you're talking about when you want to give the young guys leeway to be in the rotation. Because we all know that injuries are going to happen, but I don't know if that really solves much. And we'll get into Valdez in a second, but it's like, where would Suarez come in as someone you're like, oh, I'm going to 100% get this guy and trade somebody outside of the rotation? Like a guy like Valdez, that's a guy that you more are willing to trade someone out of your rotation to take him and give up a qualifying offer, not Suarez.
Yeah, I continue to see again the Suarez stuff. Everyone's like, oh, he was good. He's good in the postseason. He throws 89. Like I said this in our video. We talk about we talked about guys to avoid, and Suarez on that list. Like this is the next Jordan Montgomery. This is the next Eduardo Rodriguez, where we see on a deep rotation a little junky throwy lefty that has a little bit of postseason experience. You're like, this is the guy that you put him in the top of a rotation. He's not that good. He's a 4 or 5, and I get it. Again, he's had some success, and I could see the standpoint of, oh, you're weakening the Phillies, and you can get it. The Mets don't need another guy who has never pitched over 150 innings in any of his seasons in the big leagues. They need more reliability, and even if it's lesser stuff, which again, why they prefer Framber, you know what you're getting from Framber. You're going to get 185 innings or more. He's going to throw a bunch of sinkers and get a bunch of ground balls. Where you look at a guy like Ranger Suarez, he's going to give you better. He might give you a higher ERA in less innings, but he's just not. Who's got the echo? It's not the hell. I think it's
okay. So there is.
Yeah,
I'll mute my mic. Yeah.
Okay, about to say, I was like, oh, where'd that come from? But yeah, for me, Ranger Suarez is just, you have that in the sense of you have your guys that can fill out the back of the rotation. You need a guy you can have some reliability. And yes, you can say, everyone's like, oh, we need an ace. The Mets just need reliability. They need a guy who you can pencil in 185 to 200 innings. And that's what Framber Valdez is compared to a guy like Ranger Suarez, where the Mets have their guys of, hey, they can really give you 125. Like, there is a world that Clay Holmes is better than Ranger Suarez next year and the same volume of innings and probably better overall results. Like, I would put that bet. Like, I do not get this fascination with Ranger Suarez. Let the Baltimore Orioles give him, that stupid contract, or let anyone else do it. I'm not giving up a draft pick for a guy who, he has some nice results, but this rotation needs a guy who's just a bulldog at the top of the rotation that could give you innings. And the guy who's throwing 89 miles an hour is not doing it for me. So again, let the Orioles have him. Let the Phillies re-sign him back on a cheap deal because he has the qualifying or attaching, and maybe he goes back on the market next year. But there, for me, since the beginning of this offseason, he's the one guy. If Stearns signs him, I might, go get the bazooka and shoot, that polar bear. I would be pissed, especially if it's not. I'm giving up a draft pick and giving term to this type of guy, because this is literally every year the left-handed reliever, left-handed starter. Everyone's like, "Ooh, good postseason," and then we look at a year and a half of the deal. You're like, "This is awful."
I mean, the fit does go in more, I'd say, with Framber Valdez, obviously, and we've talked about this before, obviously, with how the roster is constructed. Frank, I'll go to you on this. Valdez, obviously, ground ball king right here. Sinker baller, out the wazoo. That's what he does. He can go deep into games, and that is why you can pencil him in for 180 plus innings every single year. Obviously, the term has to match up because this is a starting pitcher that is 32 years old. But when you look at Valdez on the free agent market, what did the Mets just do this offseason? They shored their infield up the middle. So when you're talking about a double play combo and a ground ball combo of Simeon and Lindor, that definitely is something that they put emphasis on. It seems like a really, really good fit, obviously, with Valdez, but 6 years, 200 million. I'm not going at those heights, and it doesn't seem like the rest of the market is either. So again, these are two guys that you give up a draft pick for. I'm taking Valdez 100 times out of 100. Like that is a 100% guarantee. I'm taking Valdez because he's also what this rotation needs. We've talked about this many, many times, and Frank, you've even put a hat tip to this plenty of times. We have a lot of young pieces in this rotation. Give me a Bartolo Colon. Give me someone you can write in 170, 180 innings. He'll make 30 starts, and he can mop up whatever innings that need to be covered by the struggles of these guys developing in the major leagues. Now, I'm not trying to compare McLean, Sproat, Tong, Scott to that old rotation we had in 2015, because pitching development is a lot different now. However, they need a horse in this rotation. They don't have one. They just don't have one. Could Clay Holmes be that? Probably not. Even though it was very impressive to see him stay healthy throughout the entire year in 2025. Kodai Senga sure as shit ain't going to do that. The guy closest to it is in a contract year, that being David Peterson, who actually just agreed to ARB3, $8.1 million, which is actually $1 million less than he was projected. So go David Stearns on that. Either way, but he is burned out in August and September when we have needed him down the stretch many times before. So there's a lot of moving parts here. There are. But it's pretty much seen they need to add someone. Someone's got to be added. I don't know who that may be, but in terms of Valdez, in context to what the Mets need, that's where I'm going. I'm going there, 100%.
Yeah. Frambar is definitely the better fit. I mean, just to go further on that point. I mean, David Pearson, he gave you 30 starts last year, but like you mentioned, in that second half, not the same guy as all-star in the first half. Then as years progress, you definitely could see the fatigue kind of wear on him.
Just like Taijuan Walker, am I right, Andrew?
The first time that he made 30 starts in the season, and you kind of saw the effect of it. Clay Holmes, I mean, the wheels were kind of falling off as he's progressed. He got through it, but how many times did Clay Holmes being pulled out in the fourth inning, being pulled out in the fifth inning, only being able to go five?
I do want to give a hat tip to Clay Holmes because obviously it's getting a little bit. It's getting more overshadowed by how the Mets failed, but he gave us the John Maine start.
He came up.
Yeah, he gave us the John Maine start.
In the
so I'm not going to say
it's season.
Like, yeah,
he sure did. But as we got there, I mean, he was in the bullpen though by the time that got there because it got to that point where he just couldn't. He was out of gas. So they certainly need, like you said, that horse, that just like Iron Man that goes that 30 starts every year. Like I said, 180 innings year in year out. That's what Frambar does. But like you said, I mean, 6 years to a guy who's 32, you're paying him at age 37, age 30, 36. It's like, could he handle that workload? Maybe, but man, I don't love it. I mean, it's never a great idea.
Here's the frightening part about this.
Mm-hmm.
After seeing what Max Fried got, that's scary. That's really scary. It is.
Is that too? He's leaving Houston, totally new organization. So Houston and Mets not quite on the same level. But if we're talking about a guy, I'm gonna say it every year, but 30 starts a year. I saw his name this week. Freddie Peralta. I mean, I don't know what you got to do to get it done, but I'm going to keep beating that drum because that's who they really could use. And like we said, like even if you're not going to get the ace, if you're going to say McLean's your ace or you don't want to pay the ace prices, you do need that guy that is out there every 5 days making starts for you, especially what happened with Manaea last year and Senga last year. You're bringing both of those guys back. Like, they do just have to get that all reliable every 5 days, for sure. I definitely think that's something that can help this team out a lot. It would not only help the rotation, but obviously would help out their bullpen a ton. You don't have guys overworked. How many guys out for the year with Tommy John based off the way the bullpen was used this past season? A lot of that had to do with the way the rotation performed. So you have somebody like Frambar, maybe keep a few more arms healthy. That will go a long way.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, we'll see if they're willing to go the distance to, like, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 years, I guess that's where they're capping out at. It is very, very possible at the rate that we're going, what you saw with Cease, you saw with Max Fried. I mean, there is a strong possibility you're looking at 30 million plus a year when you're talking about a guy like Valdez, especially on this market. Do I think Valdez is an ace? I don't think he's an ace. I think he's a horse. That's what I think he is. And when you talk about guys who can give you those certain innings, they're so important. I mean, let's not forget it, even though he is being mentioned in free agency, and we'll get into him in a second. Chris Bassett, how important Chris Bassett was for that team in 2022. And yes, it had plenty of different flaws. And yes, he completely collapsed in big games for us. And he left a sour taste in our mouths at the end of 2022, 100%. But when you're plugging in a piece, especially with Jacob deGrom was injured that season, in 2022, he gave you 181 innings. He gave you 30 starts. I mean, that's what you're looking at. Now, Chris Bassett, not a frontline guy. If you're talking about the frontline scale, compared to Framber Valdez, Valdez is a better pitcher than him. Also, I keep hearing Bassett being mentioned as a piece that the Mets should go after. I keep seeing this on social media. He doesn't like New York. Okay? He doesn't like New York. It's not happening. Okay? Unless he completely changed and he doesn't like Canadians anymore, and he's like, oh, maybe I was a little bit hard on New York. He's not coming to New York. He let you know right in front of you. Remember, some people don't remember, they gave Chris Bassett like a mutual option to add on to his control years. He declined that immediately before the Mets could even decline theirs. So he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't whatsoever. Is Lucas Giolito still available? That's another guy I'm like, no, I don't think that helps at all. Listen, when it comes to this rotation, they need a horse. We're going to continue to say that. We are going to continue to say that. And if they're going down the alley of which I'm in full support of, if they're going down that alley of let those kids get the starts, let the kids get those innings in the major leagues. If they're going down that path, I love it. I love that. I love developing your own pitching. I love developing that infrastructure that can do so, and the Mets have been doing a really, really good job of it in the minor leagues so far under David Stearns over these past few years. However, you still need somebody established in that rotation. Unfortunately, there's no characteristics that make up someone in this rotation, like we said, to where they're like, oh, that's a frontline piece that can anchor this rotation. Kodai Senga is not that. Maybe he has ace stuff. Maybe he has ace potential, but he's never on the field. Clay Holmes, back-end starter. David Peterson at his very best is a number 3 in a rotation. They have a bunch of 3s and 4s right now in this rotation. So they're going to have to take somebody out. Somebody's going to have to be taken out, obviously. I'd say that Peterson and Senga are the most likely. But stacking up pitching right now, taking guys out of the rotation, it's pretty much locked down. Even if it doesn't look good, it's locked down right now. There's a certain 5 right now that are not going to just take minor league assignments to start the season. It's not going to happen. And obviously there's going to be the yearly spring training injury, because guys get off the plane or get off the bus and, they tear their leg. But it's more of the fact of when you talk about the veterans, you talk about the young guys, how do they maneuver here? I'd like to think that they are going to try to move Senga. I'd like to think that they're going to try to move David Peterson, which we've seen reports about. But, someone's going to have to move. Someone. Because you're going to have 6 major league arms. And I am not signing Framer Valdez for him to make 25 starts because Kodai Senga needs an extra day of rest. If you sign Framer Valdez to $32 million a year, you want 30 starts out of him because that's what he's there to do. So someone will have to get moved. I don't know who it's going to end up being, but I would 100%, let's say, in terms of offer, $33 million a year for 4 years. 4 years, 132. Would you give that to Framer Valdez? I think I would. Andrew, yes or no?
Are we talking strict or we got opt-outs in that bitch? That's also another big thing he probably would like. Possibly. So don't do the 6-7. Oh, he didn't say anything. He's got his mic's dead. So there you go. I mean, again, if that's the deal, even with no opt-out, I mean, I think it's fine. You pay him till he's 36. I know, obviously, we have the fear of pitching, but again, unlike most pitchers today, he doesn't need his velocity. He could just continue to throw sinkers and curveballs and get a bunch of ground balls, so he can age well. Like, again, he won't be a 2 when he's 36, but you're telling me he can't be a 4? Like a solid back end starter who can give you innings and get you still get a bunch of ground balls. I think that's possible. Again, it's what it takes. And again, I don't think that type of contract would take you out next year when there will be at least one true ace. And then, again, you got Frank's boy and Freddie Peralta. There'll be some other type, kind of B tier aces out there as well. So I don't think this type of contract takes you out of it. And again, it gets you what you need. And also the main thing, it takes pressure off of Nolan McLean to have to be a top 10 pitcher in baseball. Like the fact that if they do not add at least some stability, you are telling this kid, you need to be what Jacob deGrom was a couple years in right away. You have to be one of the best pitchers in baseball, have to be our number one. And it's just not fair to the kid. I think it's possible, don't get me wrong, but you need to bring in at least that safety net that, okay, even if he pitches to like a 2 or a 3, you have that fallback that you have Framber that can give you that, at times ace-like stuff.
And then you also have, obviously, as I'm putting some echo danger here, you also have one of those realities as to where Manaea is not here long-term, obviously, but he would have an extra year. Clay Holmes, if he has another decent campaign, he's going to opt out of that third year, right? Then you have you'll have David Peterson off the books. He'll likely be gone. So if you have these young guys that show that they should be a part of the rotation and they show so, you can, piece that together of which young guys you want in the rotation. You'll see how you make those starts. Obviously, injuries happen, so it's not just going to be plug in 5. We're going to use 5 all year because that never happens. That won't happen. It would be a miracle if that ever happens ever again. But if you're talking about, let's say you get Valdez in this rotation, and you basically slowly, you acclimate Scott. He starts off in AAA because he's rehabbing from Tommy John surgery. You put Tong in AAA, obviously, because he definitely wasn't ready when they called him up. You have Sproat, who I don't know if he were to go into one of these trades or not. You have Sproat. Maybe he starts in AAA. Maybe he comes out of the bullpen. We've seen some stuff about that too, because again, he's a sinker baller. So I don't know where that approach comes from, but one thing I do know is that if they want to remain flexible for next year's free agency, it only makes sense that one of these guys gets traded this offseason. Only makes sense. Because I am not sitting here and saying, well, we signed Framber Valdez to this contract. Well, there's no reason to go after Tyreek Skubal. I am going face first into that pool, even if there's no water in it. Okay? That's how good of a pitcher Tyreek Skubal is. I will be willing to throw so much at him. You have no idea because he's a top 1% pitcher. So again, it only makes sense that one comes in, one comes out. Like there's no way somebody in the major league roster, for them to make upgrades to this rotation, one of them has to go. And I do know that Freddie Peralta and David Peterson are making the same amount of money in 2026. So this isn't the NBA, obviously. The salaries aren't everything, and guys can cover whatever. But let's say there is an ask. There's Peterson plus 2 in your top 10 for Freddie Peralta. Is that something that you would go with to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, 1 in, 1 out, and you get Freddie Peralta for? Is it another club option? What is it? What is that? I don't know what does he have?
It's this year, and he's a free agent. Again, he's a rental.
So he would be a rental. Okay, makes sense. Obviously, he's on the free agent. Okay, I'm an idiot. Anyways,
yeah, pretty much.
We'll see. But we'll see where they go in this direction, because if they don't add to this rotation, that's where I'm going to really start to question something. Something's going to get questioned. I feel like they have to build, yes, I know that they want to build a bridge for the kids, but they also have to build a bridge to this next starting pitching market that they should be involved in 100%. Like, there's no way they can't be involved in it. Does Valdez cut that off? I hope he doesn't. I really hope he doesn't. Because I like Valdez, but I don't think Valdez is a certified number 1 in a rotation as compared to somebody like Tyreek Skubal. So, Andrew?
Here's the thing, I guess, when it comes to the free agent class, Steve Carson, you might have to make your headphones. I don't think it won't bother if you were to spend on Framber, because let's say you want to go out and you give Tarek Skubal $1 bajillion, whatever it costs. You do have both Senga and Manaya's money coming off the books after next year, after 2027. So you do have some financial flexibility on the rotation gone. So it shouldn't matter. I mean, again, if Cohen is willing to pay the tax, then again, we play in that world. Again, we also, what the hell is the new CBA structure? That is another question. But if, let's say the rules stay similar to what they are, maybe, whatever, there is a world where you do have some bad pitching money coming off the books where you have to eat it for a year, that you're going to get taxed hell for a year, and then that money's off the books. So it shouldn't matter. And we've seen, we talked about at the beginning of the show, if there is a elite top of the planet talent, the Mets will go to that, up and beyond and try to get it. We saw Yamamoto, obviously, with Soto, so I would expect no different for Skubal. So it shouldn't matter. But again, if you look at it again, going back to one of the comments earlier of why do we care so much about, what do Stones care about 3-year deals? This is that kind of thing where it's like, okay, you're in that kind of bridge deal where it's like, this is the 3rd year of that deal, but now it's like, okay, it's bad, but now you only got 1 more year of it. So and then you have that money coming off the books. So
you also want to give kids,
you want
to give the kids a leash
and give the kids.
Yeah.
So there's a world 2 years from now, after going into 2027, if Nolan McClain is legitimized as, a top echelon top of the rotation guy, you bring in a guy like Framber Valdez, McClain making nothing. Let's say the kids take over, they're making nothing for 4 more years. It gives you that expenditure to go out and go to the nth degree for Skubal, because you'll have, let's say, your number 2 starter making nothing, and then after the fact, when Clay Holmes opts out, Manaya is gone, and Sanger gone, you'll have maybe potentially, if everything goes well, 3/5 of your rotation free. You have maybe Framber Valdez, and then in the best scenario, you have Skubal.
The thing is that how are they playing? How are they playing into that 2027? How are they playing into that 2027? And obviously, we're talking about 2026 here, but it's like you still have Manaya, you still have Senga there for 2027. And then you have that in that 2020 before that 2027 year, you have that free agent market that is filled with pitchers, right? It's filled with, you got the Skubal and Peralta and things like it only makes sense that somebody needs to get moved. Like I said, let me list out these 5 guys that are expected to be in our, the burger joint. 5 guys that are expected to be in our opening day rotation as of right now. Tell me if there's any of these guys that you would be willing right now to option to that you think is realistic to option to AAA to plug in Valdez right now. McLean, Peterson, Holmes, Minaya, Senga. None of those guys are going to be. None of those guys will be optioned to AAA. I know Senga took his AAA option, but he's not going to. Again, realistically, I know everybody. Oh, you send Minaya down, but again, realistically, none of those guys are going to just be like, oh, well, we'll send him down to AAA. He's our minor league depth. Like, that's not going to happen. They're going to get first licks.
Unless you make Holmes a 6-man rotation or move Holmes to the bullpen.
Which I don't want to do. Which I don't want to do if you bring in a guy like Valdez. You know what I mean? Like, I want Valdez getting those the most starts possible, because that's his specialty, right? Like, that's his specialty, is making so many starts and giving us so many innings and going deep into games, which is so important. So someone's going to have to get moved out of this opening day rotation right here for them to give leeway to these kids and also be, in for Valdez, and then the next year in for a guy like Skubal or Peralta. So I don't know how they kill those 2 birds with 1 stone, not to mention, the time is ticking right now, because we're close enough to spring training. We are to 2026. So it's not like we are, just beginning the offseason. I mean, it's who knows? If they don't make an addition to this rotation, or they don't add somebody or upgrade something, because I guess it would be an upgrade, like I said, with those 5 spots, I don't know how confident I feel about that. I am ecstatic to see the kids get the opportunity, but right in like, okay, playoff team, who's your game 1 starter? Who's your game 2, 3? Like, who is that? How do you plug that in? You don't have one right now. And maybe if all goes well and they believe in the coaching staff, they believe in the infrastructure of what they're developing, that's fine. But you kind of need a buffer, like, in case anything goes wrong. Like I said, you need a Bartolo Colon. You need a veteran who can just eat so many innings and let the young guys do their thing and let everything come naturally. Because like Andrew, you just said, you're not just going to shove Nolan McLean and say, hey, you're our ace, kid, go ahead. Like, that's not going to happen. Like that just isn't going to happen. And as much as I like Nolan McLean, you can't just put the weight of the world on his shoulders. You can't do that. Like we said, Bartolo Colon at 40 years old, I'm not saying get a 40-year-old, because we already tried that, right? Every single year, 150 innings plus. The first 3 years he was with the Mets, 190 plus innings. Like, that's what they need right now in this rotation. That's what they need. They need dependability. It's not just, we need an ace. And we can talk about jack of all trades. We know Tyreek Skubal is a guy that can give you 200 innings, and he's an ace. But they need a horse in this rotation. A horse. That's what they need. Speaking of non-horses, who are not a horse in this rotation whatsoever, I don't want to spend too much time on this at all, because it's in the past. It's on 2025, but I do want to obviously get Frank's take on it, because we were talking a lot about the locker room for the recent episodes that we have been doing of all the stories that have been coming out. Now, Paul Blackburn talked to the New York Post. He talked to a guy in the New York Post that I have never even heard of, to be honest. So I don't know if that's a bad sign. Maybe he's lying. I don't know. But Paul Blackburn talked about the Mets 2025 clubhouse. Obviously, he was DFA'd during the season. He joined the Yankees. I think he's back with the Yankees for 2026. And he was talking about the Mets clubhouse, obviously, with the turmoil of everything that came out, the Mike Puma article, of the Mets clubhouse. Lindor and McNeil, we all know the deal. All the leaders, we know, Tommy Pham years ago talking about the clubhouse as well. So Paul Blackburn had this to say, however, didn't ask, but thanks. He said this to Dan Martin via the New York Post, saying that the clubhouse in 2024 compared to last year was definitely different. I wouldn't say guys were in there throwing blows or anything like that, but it definitely had a different vibe. When I came over in 2024, JD Martinez and Jose Iglesias had a big impact on everyone, and everyone in there and everyone vibed together. Those were the guys that helped the clubhouse mesh last year. Those guys weren't there. It could have been guys trying to play into different leadership roles. It's tough. I feel like they felt they needed some change, and they made it. It was definitely a different clubhouse than I've ever been a part of. I'll say that. I don't think there were bad guys in there. I just don't think people meshed well together. That was in stark contrast to what he found in the Bronx. When I showed up to the Yankees, it was very noticeable how everyone was pulling on the same rope. Yeah, the Yankees are amazing. Anyways, so obviously, Paul Blackburn, who the fuck asked you? But here's the thing. The Mets clubhouse, obviously, we know that there was a lot that came out. We talked about this exclusively many times, considering how slow the offseason has been, as to why the Mets made the certain moves that they have made, and as to them moving on from this 2019 core. Obviously, on paper, everyone will tell you the team sucks, it's going to win 50 games, whatever. In a clubhouse standpoint, Frank, I'll go to you on this one. We talked about this exclusively last week. We had Evan and Matt from Mets Central on here, where they're just, from everything that we are getting that has come out, in overall mentality and overall leadership of these veterans who have been with this team in this organization for over a decade, drafted by the organization, there just weren't any leaders. There just weren't. Pete Alonso's "it's just one game, bro" comment on Foul Territory. I mean, if that's the mentality you have, that's not a leader. Brandon Nimmo apparently would have hurt his feelings if he, if they gave Lindor captaincy. Jeff McNeil, we have a long list of that. We don't even need to get into that. It's the fact of what was that mentality for 7 years now. Like, there's just not, and like we said also last week, we're not saying that Lindor and Soto are perfect either, because there's been things that they have handled not well either. But like, deficient players as well, limited players. Like, it makes sense as to why these moves were made and why the moves that weren't made. Not to mention Simeon and Polanco, notable great clubhouse guys, notable great leaders. Like, you got to dip into the deepness of this core when they don't win for 7 years. It's not just this guy individually was great, let's keep him. This has gone on a long time. And throughout those 7 years, not a single back-to-back postseason appearance. And the last time that happened, 2016, we spent 3 hours in the postseason. So it's like, we need to find that consistency, and we weren't finding this with this group. We just weren't.
Yeah, it was definitely something that stood out to me last year. I felt like they certainly missed the veteran leadership that they were getting from JD and Iglesias. It was something that, during that 2024 run, a lot of those young guys were talking about all the time. And after the season was over, they talked about the impact and the difference it made. And the statistics show it. I mean, when Iglesias and JD Martinez joined that team, you saw a different Mets team. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And they just didn't replace that. I mean, even though Iglesias and JD Martinez were gone, they didn't bring in like more veteran leaders. Like, it was just, they were, didn't have it. And even Marte, he didn't show a vocal leader.
I want to add in on that. It's like, okay,
yeah,
what it shows off the field and what it shows on the field. And like we were saying, it's like no leadership. and we were getting the mixed results on the field. With Marte, and listen, I like Marte. I really do. I think he's had a great career, but we know what he's not capable of anymore. And when you hear things from either Juan Soto or other guys of how they see Marte as a leader, it shows on the field. It's like this team was sleepwalking throughout the entirety of this season in 2024 with all that talent. And they looked like everybody looked like in the field, in terms of consistency, they looked like rundown 37-year-olds who can't really do that much anymore, can't move, basically just 37-year-old DHs who have absolutely no power. Like, that was the typical day in Mets land in 2025. Like, it showed. It really did show, what the mentality was. And I'm sorry, these guys just, from what I'm hearing after the aftermath, I am glad they moved on. I know that the roster doesn't look great and everyone thinks we're going to lose, whatever. But those types of players, those deficient players, they show deficiency other ways. Like, I'm very disappointed from what I've heard from about Brandon Nimmo. I'm very disappointed from hearing what I heard from Pete Alonso. Jeff McNeil, we already know where his head's at. We all know. But it's like, Frank, you can continue here. No leaders, no leaders. And it really does show. It's like their best came when they had these veteran leaders. 2022, Escobar, Canna, Marte, for Scherzer. 2022, that was their best year with this core. 2024, Iglesias, the oh my God, the grimace, all of that stuff. And they barely even made it. I mean, they didn't have it. They weren't made for it. They really weren't. It's just every time when we needed them to step up, this core, they didn't. They just didn't step up.
Yeah, and the thing too is that, like, when you add someone like Polanco, you add Marcus Semien, it's number one for your baseball team. Like, both those guys are starting players. They're starting on the right side of the infield. But if you're hoping that they also bring in good locker room presence, if you're asking them to be veteran leaders, you could run into a similar situation where it's like, Polanco's only here for 2 years. Marcus Semien's here a little longer. But when those guys' contracts run up, well, then where's the leadership going to go? Because the thing is that, like, with how long Juan Soto was here in particular, and Lindor's here for a long time too, you want those guys to be the leaders. Like, they're supposed to be the leaders, with not only how much they're getting paid, but how long they're going to be here. Like, you want those guys to be leaders. And, those guys, their relationship, from what we heard, it's not the greatest. And, it could be two totally different personalities. Juan Soto, very business focused. They're two very different people.
Like even Paul Blackburn said, it's like nobody was throwing punches.
Like, well, they have in the past, not Soto and Lindor, but there have been some altercations.
And they both have spoken highly about each other publicly. Like, it's not like it's to hate. They're just two completely different people. I mean, Lindor likes fashion. Soto does not. Deal breaker, But it's like with Soto, obviously there was the whole thing of him jogging to around first base when they were like, at Fenway or something. Didn't see him doing that as much. Like, it's leading by example, like we have said. And we know that Juan Soto can lead by example. We know that he can, because we've seen throughout his career. We know that Lindor is a lot more vocal, but when you look at, like, the core of these young talent, and I brought it up even from an extended version of these homegrown pieces that came in capitalized in 2019 when officially David Wright left. That next homegrown core, the Pete Alonso of what he is saying publicly, like I said, that's not a leader. Brandon Nimmo is, he's upset about, the captaincy and they had to protect his feelings. That's not a leader. Jeff McNeil, I'm not even going to get into that. Michael Conforto said 10 words his entire time he was here. He's not vocal at all. And also has made, and throughout his career, a very frustrating player that you wouldn't want to lead by example, right? Jacob deGrom, not vocal at all, a lead by example type of guy. Same thing goes with Wheeler. Noah Syndergaard, whiny all the time. Steven Matz, head case. Seth Lugo didn't even like New York. Dom Smith, Ahmed Rosario, they stunk here. They wouldn't have stunk. Like, out of all of those guys, the homegrown core, right? The homegrown core that was technically passed on from David Wright officially retired, not one leader. Not one leader came out of it. Of guys that have been in the organization since birth. They should know the organization. They should be, a lead by example guy. And they're just not. It's not good enough. It just wasn't good enough. Deficient
but also,
players, deficient leaders.
Yeah. But also, David Wright was the guy who would, throw your lunch in the garbage. I mean, he was someone that definitely was a lot tougher of a leader, and I just don't think. I think Lindor is too nice. I don't think they really have like that kind of guy that is like super.
I think he's nice to a lot of people, except one guy who's in Sacramento.
Yeah. But I just feel like when it comes to like a true leader, you have to hold everyone to a very high standard. I would use the example of like how Aaron Judge handled somebody like Marcus Stroman. Like I always feel like someone like that is like a true leader of like, listen, this is not what we do here. We have a high standard. This is how we play the game. That they don't have that. Maybe Semien might help that a little bit.
No.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Semien might be able to do that because like how long he's been in the league and the kind of player that he is. Listen, I hope he can because the stats are not so much. But if you could do leadership things, that would be nice. But overall, like this is kind of again the team that they assembled, though. I mean, these are things that you have to think about. You know what? It's not always MLB The Show, right, Andrew? You can't just get the guys with the highest overalls. I mean, there are those personality fits. These are a team full of humans. It's not a team full of robots. So these are all things they have to consider, and who's going to be that leader, we'll see. I mean, maybe Nolan, you know what I mean? Like maybe one day Nolan McClain will be a leader of this team, but we'll see. Like it's because, I mean, Juan Soto is not all of a sudden going to become a super vocal person. Like he kind of is who he is. And I think Lindor, like he's still going to be
Lindor
smiley.
and Soto are lead by example guys. They are.
But
they
but even
because again, Lindor 2024. He was a leader on the field for us. Like it was a big impact. That was MVP type of impact where he started off slow, finished second in the MVP voting, right? So again, it's one of those things where it all needs to come together, obviously. I'm easy saying that David Wright was not a good leader either. How many collapses under his watch? How many collapses under the watch of his leaders?
Yeah. When David Wright was leader, the Mets sucked, and it wasn't his fault. I mean, he had a whole bunch of things going on. That take hours.
You had ownership
for us to go over all.
You had managers. You had so many other factors there.
There was a lot going on there.
And when you talk about, if you want to talk about David Wright not being a great leader, he gave basically his entire body to this franchise, and they gave him nothing back. So, I mean, listen, if you're not a fan of David Wright, whatever, and people think so highly of him, you can look high into the rafters because 5 is staying there forever. So that was, again, he was a leader in that clubhouse. He was a captain in that clubhouse. So he was named the captain, the 4th, I believe. Like they don't have that vocal. I mean, I don't want to go back to these because it's a different game now, but they don't have that vocal Gary Carter, Keith Hernandez. Like they don't have that. They just don't. And I love the guys that, they go about their business. They're not, putting up, controversy constantly. Lindor and Soto are they lead by example. So you need guys like Polanco or Semien there as those certain veterans. Like you do need that. But it's all really just about how it all meshes together. And like we said, JD Martinez, Jose Iglesias, again, with this core, like we said, with the lack of leadership with this core, if that was the deciding factor with a $400 million payroll, you're not good enough. You're just not good enough. And it shows. It really does show. But obviously, Andrew, you've been quiet here. You actually texted me before the show started, and you're like, why are we still talking about this from 2025? It's, again, I think it's just basically the reason why it's relevant as to why people are questioning, the Semien or the Polanco moves. I think this is like, again, this is why. Like it more is just, the presence of them in that clubhouse. It makes an impact. It really does make an impact, but you're also talking about, guys that still have a little bit left in their careers and also could help deficiencies of this team. Simeon, the defense, Polanco, professional hitting that we did not see at all for any kind of spurts in 2025. So, again, it all connects. I think it connects perfectly. I think it does, at least. Or maybe I'm going at this wrong completely. What do you think, Andrew?
I mean, we're getting the reaction of a man who had an injury that sounds so fake, it's almost cartoonish. He's got mild leaky back and his spine's leaking. Who the hell cares? Again, I understand, but here's the point: we're done. That whole locker room's dead. All them guys are gone. So there's a whole new locker room. So I don't want to hear any more about 2025. They're all dead. They were all put in the back, shotgun to the head. They're gone. We got Marcus Semien. We got Jorge Polanco, Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor. Book chapters closed. The year's changed. Team's dead. And I don't need to hear. I don't want to hear Travis Jankowski on foul territory tomorrow being like, "Man, my 2 weeks with the Mets, man, that locker room, they all wanted to fight each other." Like, enough. Like, we moved on. The team's dead. Enough. Like, the 2025 Mets are dead and buried. Move on. It's 2026.
Here lays the 2019 core. Here lays.
In the mediocrity where they belong.
Because it seemed like out of all the guys bringing it back, this is just funny. What's funny from that 2019 team, the guy that it seemed like they were closest to bringing back, since they traded Nimmo, was Diaz. Isn't it funny that the most hated Met in 2019 from that 2019 team would be the only guy that they ended up bringing back from that 2019 team? That's kind of ironic, isn't it? Because I think a lot of Mets fans, were going after Diaz in 2019. So that would have been, listen.
Well, I mean,
crazy.
He gave up a homer to
Time's
Jacob
a flat
Stalin,
circle, isn't it? Time's a flat circle, isn't it? Anyways, we're just going to end off with a few questions here. Armand is amazing saying this earlier on, saying a Red Sox podcast on WEEI, I don't know if I said that right, came up with a 3-team mock trade. The Mets get Jarren Duran and Jordan Leisure?
He's a White Sox reliever, I think, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Boston gets Jonah Tong and Kyle Teal. The White Sox get Brett Beatty and Christian Scott. The Mets, I feel like, are giving up the most there, isn't it? The Mets are probably giving up the most, right?
It depends how much you value Darren Duran.
Yeah.
It also depends how much do you want Duran and a reliever for, again, cost control with Tong, the 2 cost controllable starters, and then Beatty. I mean, Kyle Teal going back to Boston's kind of funny. Like, because really, the Mets get an out. Okay, they replace Nimmo with Jarren Duran, and then you eat into your pitching depth. Is that really the outfielder you want to eat into your pitching depth for? Like, that's kind of the conversation.
Then you also lose the best third baseman in baseball too.
Well, I mean, that is tough. I mean, we do have Jacob Reimer coming, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we'll see. I don't know. That there's certain moves. Some people were suggesting. I think somebody suggested Wilmer Flores. I don't know where that would fit.
Yeah.
I don't think we can continue the DH. Armand also saying trade for Donovan. Donovan for left field.
Another out of position.
Would that be out of position?
Donovan plays everywhere. No, he plays everywhere.
He does play everywhere. He's younger
everywhere.
He's younger than McNeil, right?
I mean, left-handed bat, and what they're asking for Seattle is they want Laz, and then they want Durangelo Senja, so that'd be 2 top 10 guys is what they're asking for. So
yeah, I ain't giving that up for a second baseman. That ain't gonna happen. You're gonna have Brandon Nimmo for a second baseman. We did it.
Like that's
I think that will do it for today's episode. We're going to hop off right here. Obviously, still plenty of off-season stories to come. I mean, like so much it still has to do. Even on, the second week of January, there's still plenty of guys available. It's moving very, very slow. Last few things that you just want to go after. The Mets avoided arbitration with all of their arbitration-eligible players, that being David Peterson, Tyrone Taylor, Tylor McGill, Francisco Alvarez, Luis Torrens, Reed Garrett, and Huskar Brazaban. Let's see. There's one more thing. Oh, like we said in the chat, Ryan Stanek signed with the Cardinals, and Nick Madrigal signs with the Angels. So those are your two former Mets that ended up going elsewhere. And that should
more.
be about it. What else? Oh, do you want to announce it?
I will, because I will be able to see David Stearns. So I'm gonna have a conversation with David Stearns, because the fact that he gave up the greatest utility man in all of minor league baseball and let him go to a poverty organization like the Los Angeles Angels. The fact that you let go of Luke Ritter, but yet Mark Vientos and Luis Angel Acuna are still on this major league team. Do you not know defensive versatility? Do you not know pure grit? But it is David Stearns, so Ritter is probably asking for that Soto money, and of course, let's him go to the Angels.
Brother, he is 30 years old. Let it go.
Okay,
he is 30.
I mean, dude, he gonna go to the Angels, hit 40 homers. It's gonna be great. Take Christian Moore's fucking job. Christian Scott, that's our guy.
It go. Okay.
Nah.
Frank, good to have you back. Any last words for today's episode?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, off season, move along. I mean, something happened, like anything. Like it's definitely been dry. I mean, we'll take anything, free agent, trade, something. I mean, whether it's pitcher, hitter, like anything, it's just moving at a very slow pace right now. And we're running out of time. I mean, one thing I definitely don't want to see is a pitcher signed by time pitchers report. Like, that's something I definitely don't want to do. So, like, especially with that, like, if we are going to add one, I really would like to do it very soon.
We'll see. And again, like we said, the moving parts in the rotation, it's like there's a lot of questions that need to be answered here still. And it's January 9th. Like, we're getting close to a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting, and still a lot has been left unanswered. The Mets have made a decent amount of moves, but still a lot left unanswered here, and we'll see where that ends up going and which free agents come off next. We'll see. Either way, we're going to end it off here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel. Turn on those post notifications to know when we go live, which is regularly 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time every Friday during the off season. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. Make sure to follow all of us individually. The links are in the description. And finally, let's go Mets. And we will see you guys next week.